long. And that's extraordinary to have been able to communicate this deeply personal, intimate part of yourself into the pages of this book. And it's testament to your generosity, because it's clear, and I don't know if you have not read this book, I encourage you to, because it's a really unique story. And even though you felt like your story might not be unique, that's a beautiful thing about you. You're also very humble. It is unique. And as I started to read it, I was thinking, how did you decide what stories you wanted to share?
Well, it is overwhelming to try to condense or frame your story when it's a memoir, obviously not a biography, and really think that you're going to create something that has a clear beginning, middle, and end when our life is obviously still continuing. And I kept getting this overriding question that kept coming to me that I needed to frame this around, which is, how did I get here? Coming from where I've come from, how did I get here? I have the life I've had, the experiences or the things I've done. Because on paper, it just didn't make any sense at all. And then as my life exploded, and I had done all this work on myself, I thought, how the fuck did I get here?
I'm sure you asked that more than once.
Trust me. And that became the shape, to look at just that exploration, which then gave me an opportunity, which in some ways I was already doing that kind of healing work for myself, but it really helped me to kind of look at those various events that have led to choices that I made, the things, that for good and bad, choices that I made, and definitely helped to give me a deeper understanding, and that's what then shaped the book.
I mean, I think that so many of us have life experiences as children, young adults, adults even, that I've never met anyone that hasn't had some kind of traumatic experience of varying degrees, right? I'd like to know if anyone is in the room.
Is there anyone who's
around? I'm open to meeting that person tonight. You see, so everyone has had an experience.
That would be with saint status.
Right. But I think even saints maybe had something that happened to them too. So I think, there are these moments in life that happen where either that it takes us out, and many people don't come back from traumatic experiences. And we know many of those people, and we read about them and we hear about them, and it's heartbreaking. But I knew about your childhood, and I knew about many of the things that you had shared with me, but reading it on the page, it impacted me in a very different way. And I was able to kind of look at it objectively and say, wow, my friend at age 15 years old was taken out to bars by her mother and was possibly sexually abused in these circumstances.
Not even possibly, but was.
Right. Reading that just in itself hurt my heart. And I thought, well, yeah, that's one of those things that you don't come back from, And the more I read, and again, I didn't read anything in your book that I didn't know already, but reading it was like, my God, you have had experience after experience, profound, extraordinary things that don't happen to many people in the world, but also a lot of trauma and a lot of devastation. And one of the things that has always struck me about you is I feel like you're like a cat with 9 lives. You have been down so many times, and there is whatever it is in you, your spirit, I don't know what it is, but there's something in you that allows you to come back up, like a phoenix.
Scorpio. It's an adaptive thing. Scorpio. Maybe that is part of it.
What do you think that is? What do you think that is in you, that desire that no matter how bad it's got, you have always sought the truth, and you've always sought to improve and learn and move forward?
I don't know. I think I don't know exactly what has given me a certain drive and resilience. What I feel I've discovered in my own process is that I've somehow had an ability or a desire to just keep reaching, And, I really know now that, and look at things as that life is happening for you, not to you.
It doesn't always feel like that in the moment.
No, but it is all in how you hold it. And I look at the things, I think it's almost in reaction to, like the things that I saw of my mother or how I saw people react to her, and feeling this enormous responsibility to reach beyond that, whether it was that I was trying so hard not to be that. But there's also something, like I look at when I really decided to pursue a career, I had nothing, so I didn't have anything to lose.
Oh, that's true.
And there's something about that gives you a great kind of I don't know, just
fearlessness.
Yeah.
Right. All right. The more you do succeed, and the more success and fame and financial security that you get, the harder it is to fall.
I think when you taste a little bit of something, you can become a little bit more guarded and protective of what you have, or not even so much about what you have, but
fear
about
of losing it.
Or just of, probably not losing, but of failing. We start to get a sense of what we think is the formula, and then we don't want to screw it up. But
yeah, the magic formula. Oh my gosh, there's so many of us in whatever field we're in, whatever we're doing, whether it's personally, professionally. I think we're all trying to work out what is the formula to succeed at this thing, right?
But one thing I was going to say, back to about what drives you. I can look now and say, if I had had a childhood that was protected and really where I had a safety net, I don't know if I would have had the courage or the strength to take the risks I did to do and be who I am. And so in that way, I feel like I don't have to, actually I don't have to do anything. But I choose to find the gratitude in that those things that were lacking in my parents actually were given to me. They gave me the strength and the resilience and the tenacity to go after these things, to become who I wanted to be and not be defined by who they were.
I mean, that tenacity drove you and propelled you towards a career that I often forget. The breadth of your career, you have done so much work, and you were a trailblazer, advocating for equal pay and advocating to challenge stereotypes with the roles that you did well before anyone even knew what a female stereotype was, So you were you were an early adopter based on your own experiences. And I think probably at the time, people didn't know what the hell you were trying to do, right? They were like, wow, this woman is playing, a soldier and a stripper, and you just really went outside the box,
Well, the question is why not? I mean, the idea of something that was provocative for me was really almost wanting to explore and answer the question for myself. Like, what would that be like for a woman to be up against, men in a situation like in G.I. Jane, and if somebody really wanted to do it, why couldn't they? And so for me, it was like, let's see what this can do.
So did you not have a sense of restriction in that regard. You were like, and maybe it's to your point that because you came from, you didn't have anything to lose. You're like, why not? You didn't have that internal restriction of like, I can only go this far.
I think I always looked at things like if there was a limitation present, and kind of just went through a checklist of why was that present? Why was there a limitation? Why is it being looked at as that's not something that a woman can do? Or, why can't a pregnant woman be, nude or be seen as sexual? There's things I looked at the limitation, and if it was there, I don't know what it was in me that just needed to push the envelope.
But I think it's bravery because like you were the first woman to publicly show her naked body pregnant on the cover, and not just like, we didn't have social media then, on the cover of Vanity Fair, the most stunning, gorgeous photograph of you, hugely pregnant and naked. And that was the first time that we had seen a very famous person do that. It's now almost like if you're very famous and you're pregnant and you don't do that, people notice it, you know?
I mean, I kept that came about. That photo actually was at the end of the shoot and was just for us privately. And I had
But it was you that probably said, hey, can you do this for me so I have this?
Well, it was the second time Annie and I had done it because it was my second pregnancy. So we had been, chronicling things, and so she was doing it for me. And I said, wow, wouldn't it be great if they had the courage to put this on the cover? And then she did call me like a week after to say, hey, would you be comfortable with it? And I was always amazed because I, remember a story that my grandmother was telling me. Besides the fact that I couldn't, what is it with the Peter Pan collar? It's like you want to say it's, they are celebrating you when they find out you're pregnant and when you have the baby, but the in between you're supposed to pretend you've never had sex. And they have the Peter Pan collars, and my grandmother told me this story about being a girl and going to church when people were whispering about a woman saying, doesn't she think it's about time she stays home? Wow. And that really stayed with me about why is it looked at in such a negative way when I found it to be one of the most powerful and beautiful, freeing times of my life. It was the first time I really felt, you can get that. I didn't feel self-conscious about my body. And so...
why was that?
I think I just let go that I needed to look a certain way. And I just enjoyed being, really being. I didn't have to do anything or try to be something for someone else.
You said something really profound the other night where you said, you talked about being love, and you said that you are love without doing anything.
Yeah.
That really stuck with me. Once in a while, not once in a while, quite frequently she says things and I'm like, oh my God, that's so good. And I'll think about it for days, and obviously that's something that you have struggled with yourself, feeling like you have to be and do something, whatever it is people want you to be and do.
I mean, I think that's kind of coming from where I've come from and in the journey of the book. For me, it was really starting to change this idea that, my mother's actions are not a reflection of my value, but her own. And I think that I've not been able to hold a lot of value. I mean, I had I carried a really heavy misunderstanding that I wasn't good enough, and that it wasn't okay that I was even here or that I was born, and that there was so the thing that probably propelled me forward in my early life was, and not even early life, what am I saying? Maybe until the more recent past, which was to prove, let me show that I'm worthy, that it's okay, that it's not a mistake, that I'm not taking up too much space, that, I've done something.
Many of us suffer from having, low to very low self-esteem. And I think it's so generous of you to be willing to share your own feelings of having had very low self-esteem, because it gives everybody who reads your book and who's in the room with us right now permission to also allow their own feelings of not feeling worthy enough. And again, I've never met a human being who's not ever had that feeling, you know? So thank you for your generosity yet again.
I was going to say, you know, in looking at those pieces of how I got here, and the one in particular of an experience of being trapped in a room with a man in his 50s and I'm 15, and carrying that as if it was my fault, that it was that, you know, I didn't even identify it as rape until maybe 10, 12 years ago. But that event and the question that he brought to me after, which was, how does it feel to be whored by your mother for $500? And in that moment, one was orphaned, because there was no way to trust. My father had killed himself at this point, and I couldn't even wrap myself around asking that question or trying to. I just had to run. I had to just keep moving forward as fast as I could. And I think that as I look at the pieces of my life and how that moment left me with a question that I buried, but it also affected every choice I made in all of my relationships and the value I held for myself based on that question possibly being the truth. And so finally, by really releasing the misunderstanding that I'm wrong in any way other than the fact that
you were 15.
And not even that, but that I'm perfect as we all are in our uniqueness of just who we are. I don't have to be or do. And that's hard to wrap yourself around when what you're holding against yourself is that you're nothing.
How did you come to the place of really believing that this was a misunderstanding?
Say that again.
How did you come to the place of no longer taking ownership of the fact that you were raped by a 50-year-old man when you were 15? It's really hard to even say that, because I think
it takes, you know, on one hand it's very simple, and on the other hand it takes some real diligence and really unraveling and unpacking. But I will say there's the three pieces, which is what I try to look at, which is it takes some self-acceptance and a lot of compassionate self-forgiveness. And a lot of that is compassionate self-forgiveness for all that I feel I'm not, so that I can then embrace all that I am. And somehow that, you know, it seems so easy to hold ourselves over into, I'm not this or I'm not that and I'm not good at that, and if I could, and instead of celebrating all that we are. And that's what makes us as human beings so interesting. It's all that we are as individuals and our uniqueness. But it took a lot of work to kind of get through that. And part of it is looking and forgiving myself for all the other disastrous mistakes I've made.
You mean your humanness?
My humanness.
Yes. Everyone makes mistakes. It's just that yours were on blast.
Yeah.
I've been with you through some of those mistakes, which I don't think they are. I mean, that's just my perspective.
They're just opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been with you, like standing next to you for some of those, and it has been, and I remember thinking, wow, no, you're having this experience that many other people have had, by the way. It just isn't all over the place. it isn't like, you know, the media hasn't got a voracious appetite for it. And I also wondered what it is like having to make mistakes so publicly.
It is really hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I can imagine that adds to your one's feeling of like, I'm not good enough, and
But
yeah.
you know, I feel like I do believe that everything happens for you, not to you. And for whatever reason, this has been what has been part of my story. That it's partly in the public, and the question of going, you know, like, am I good enough? Why me? Like, finally say, why not me?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's been kind of part of my release. There was something I was going to say and I lost my train of thought.
Sorry,
That
I
happens
do that
post.
too.
That happens post 50.
It's already happened. I'm not there yet. Oh my gosh. So okay, so the public piece of you, you know, I forget so often that you're a really famous person because you behave and live your life as someone who does not have that surrounding them. One of the fun things that I love to do with Demi is we go to a Korean spa, and so many times, you know, you're not clothed in the Korean spa, and
I don't know where she's going with
yes,
this.
no, but so many times people have looked at me and then looked at her, and then they go like, well, you really look like Demi Moore, you know, and she's like, thank you. Your fame has not stopped you from living your life.
I mean, I try, you know, of course, I try not to let it get in the way.
Yeah, but you've done a really good job at it, because there are people who haven't. There are people who haven't, and you have continued to, no matter what is going on, you are very committed to living your life truthfully and honestly. And whatever that is, whether that's going to Starbucks or the Korean spa or the supermarket or whatever the hell it is, you know, you are committed to whatever that truth is of who you are in that moment.
That said, I feel like a part of my fear of being seen, if anybody really could see me, you know, really has kept me like limited.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the opportunity I feel that I've gotten with this book is to like unload this backpack that held fear of being judged, by just putting it out there so that I don't feel like I have to protect myself. There isn't anything that, like, I don't want to live where I'm, you know, like guarded, and I have a lot of my life. And I really was ready to be free, and still find another balance with what I feel is private.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the book is broken into kind of three parts, if you will, right? There's survival, success, and surrender, which is beautiful. And then I was also thinking how, like, survival skills, and to your point, the things that start off as survival skills and they have the ability to really kill us, literally. Later on, when you're in surrender, those things, part of the surrender is also utilizing those survival skills for thriving, right? Because your intuition and your discernment and your tenacity and all of those things are survival skills when you were a little